Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Founders Great. Today we have Andrew, the founder of Finvoice. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Great.
So, give us a brief background about yourself, what you've been doing before Finvoice.
Yeah, so prior to Finvoice, I used to work in financial services as a professional investor. And then I was doing a master's of finance at Cambridge. And we had a group project where we looked at small businesses around the world. And one of my professors then said to me, small businesses around the world are misunderstood and understudied. And so I've been thinking about the problem of small business credit since those days in grad school 7 years ago. And so along the way, I worked at a emerging markets investment fund, and then eventually started Finvoice. So the original idea with Finvoice was, how do you make it economical to give small businesses credit? So 2/3 of the world's jobs are generated by SMEs, as well as half of GDP. But small businesses are misunderstood and underserved. So the original idea to Finvoice was to give small businesses loans ourselves. We pivoted to being a software as a service company 3 years ago, and now we have around 20 banks or lenders that are our customers. We just signed on the World Bank. So yeah.
Nice. So, pivot 3 years ago, product market fit, the challenge that every startup goes through. So, what were your early days like, figuring out the product market fit, going through the pivot and all?
Yeah, I think product market fit, I think when you hear all these startup stories, PMF is a very iterative process, right? So like Snap went through like 40 ideas. A lot of companies in their early days, whether it's Uber, like traditionally being more up market for black cars and then going down market to UberX. A lot of businesses pivot in their early days, as we did, from being a principal lender to just being what Finvoice does now is we're a software as a service company. So we sell software that allows old school brick and mortar lenders to originate, underwrite, and service a loan like a SoFi in 30 days. So it's a white label software solution. We power banks and lenders. But no, the product market fit days are very iterative. So first we saw a market opportunity as a lender. We did demos with a number of software providers, and we saw there's a market opportunity. And then we started picking up customers and learning more along the way, and iterated on our product.
And so, I believe you've raised a round of close to $5 million. So,
yeah.
So that happened before the pivot or after the pivot, and what was it all like?
So, like around the pivot, it was literally like the Silicon Valley TV show. We had like 4 guys in a converted house in Alamo Square in San Francisco. We had like a billionaire landlord that eventually threw us out. All the kind of stories. Engineer living in the basement. We had to tell him not to live there so he wouldn't get kicked out. So all the common startup stories. In terms of raising money, we've raised most of it recently. So last year we raised around $3 or $3.5 million round that was led by a venture fund called Destin's Venture Capital. They used to be the head of innovation at Silicon Valley Bank, and it's a fintech fund based in San Francisco. We also had FIS Invest, who's the largest software company to banks. They used to be a $90 billion public company before COVID. So yeah, we've had a number of investors. So it's been great.
So unfortunate times because of COVID, but it has also acted as a catalyst for multiple businesses. So how do you see the Finvoice, will it be able to enjoy the upright like Zoom or other companies?
Yeah, so the way we see COVID is we break companies into 3 categories. The first ones are the ones that are, let's go maybe like the ugly, the bad, and then the good, right? So the ugly ones are obviously, there's a number of sectors that have been extremely negatively affected. Travel, apparel and retail, energy, and so forth. And so that's a tough place to be in. The second one are companies that are like kind of okay, they just raise money and they're waiting out. And the third is kind of the online services, e-commerce, online ed tech, and so forth. And so for us in the short term, our sales slowed down. So 90% of our enterprise sales slowed down. But in the medium term, we think that that COVID will help this digital transformation thesis of Finvoice. So suddenly, selling to banks is very difficult traditionally. And so the criticism of us in Silicon Valley has always been, banks are slow to change, there's difficult. The thought process now is, since the banker is sitting at home and his kid is on Zoom and Slack and all these workplace collaboration apps that we take for granted, they're going to suddenly look at their software that looks like Windows 3.1 or even DOS, and they say, hey, maybe there's a better solution. If I need to run my business remote, which you guys know well, maybe I should look to a digital transformation. So we think it's going to be a huge secular tailwind, huge tailwind in the medium term.
Interesting. Last question, since my marketing team forces me to keep the podcast within 8 to 9 minutes. So remote work, right? So we've all been forced to go remote and everything, especially the sales used to be typical sales meeting in person, especially dealing with banks and all, then managing the marketing creative team as well as the technology team. So how are you able to cope up with all these challenges? And do you think you're lagging behind, or the team is up to 100%, or even some are saying 120% productivity? So how is that working out for you?
So we were actually a distributed engineering team before COVID. So we've been distributed for a couple of years, year and a half, 2 years. And so what we saw in the market then was something that you guys have identified. The same reason you recruit engineers in certain geographies is that talent is uniformly distributed, cost is not. So previously, recruiting software engineers prior to COVID was very difficult in the Bay Area and New York and other places. You could get much higher quality engineers for a better price if you look, around the US or throughout the Americas or in Europe. And so we've already adopted to that model. So there's been basically no change. Most of our engineers' offices are their homes. So we have an office in San Francisco. We don't know how much longer we'll have it for, but it's somewhat ceremonial. So yeah, no change.
And what about the sales? Sales working out fine over Zoom, or?
So yeah, we continue to pick up small clients, but in the short term with COVID, like we signed on a customer last week. We have the agreement with the World Bank. And the 2020 plan for Finvoice was to move up market. We were at a pace of 1 enterprise pitch per week, 1 to 2 enterprise pitches per week. Okay. That slowed down when COVID hit because, suddenly the sky is falling. So some of the larger prospects have slowed down in the short term. But we think we'll come back, hopefully Q3, maybe Q4.
Andrew, thank you so much for taking the time out. Stay safe, take care of yourself, and hopefully we'll keep on hearing amazing news coming from Finvoice. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for having me. Yeah.